Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you guys some more about Ukraine's far-right problem. Anytime there is an argument about Ukraine's far-right problem, there are always going to be the arguments that pop up that go something like this. Zelensky is a Jew, therefore Ukraine cannot have a far-right problem. It does not have a far-right problem. And then they will also minimize the presence of Nazis and ultra-nationalists in Ukraine by saying that those Ukrainians who are very enthusiastic about their country and their country's history are simply good patriots. Some of them go too far. And yes, they are those who identify as Nazis, but they are simply, to reference Sam Cedar, just a spot on an elephant's ass. Sam Cedar said something like this when talking about the Nazi presence in Ukraine. Well, there is a very recent story that came up in Ukraine, that took place in Ukraine, in which the president of Ukraine, the Jewish president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, gave a Heroes Award to a 99-year-old Ukrainian mass murderer who was a member of the UPA-OUN, which was a paramilitary network in Ukraine during the Second World War that not only collaborated with the Nazis, but also took part in a massive operation to exterminate the Polish population in what is today Eastern Ukraine. And this story came up on there's a Polish publication called KRESY, and this is I really like going to this publication because it gives you the Polish perspective on current events. Yes, they are critical of Russia. That's understandable given the history with the Soviet Union. But at the same time, they are critical of what the Ukrainians are doing. And they put up this article recently about the Jewish president of Ukraine. We keep hearing about this Jewish president. We keep hearing, oh, Ukraine's president is Jewish, so how can Putin talk about Nazis? Like, oh my God, it's so stupid. You're so stupid to believe that. How could you say that? The president's Jewish. Well, the Jewish president of Ukraine gave a Heroes Award to a man who would have murdered his whole family, Zelensky's family. So you tell me, what kind of a country is this? What kind of a country is this where a Jewish president is giving an award, a major national award, to a mass murderer who would have murdered his Jewish family? Is that a country where a Jewish president is going to feel empowered? In Ukraine, the Jewish man gives the award to the Nazi. That sounds like you got a Nazi problem. If you have Jews giving awards to Nazis, sounds like you got yourself a problem. Because in America, that would never fly. In Israel, that would definitely not fly. So here's the article. It says, Miroslav Shimshich. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this guy's name correctly, but his last name is very much like a Polish last name, because this guy, I'm going to guess, is from Eastern Ukraine, which is right near Poland. So last name sounds similar. Plus, when I hear Ukrainian, I used to think that, oh, Ukrainian is like Russian. When I hear Ukrainian, like real Ukrainian, when I hear it, it sounds like Polish. It doesn't sound anything like Russian. It sounds like Polish. I confuse it for Polish, for the Polish language. It sounds very much alike. So Miroslav Shimshich, a former member of the OUN UPA, nicknamed KRESY, who was to order the murder of the Polish population in the village of Pistine in the Stanislavov Voivodeship, received the title of Hero of Ukraine from the Jewish president that we keep hearing about, Volodymyr Zelensky. Now we keep hearing, oh, how could Ukraine have a Nazi problem? How can I have a far-right problem? The president's Jewish. The president's Jewish. Here is the Jewish president giving a hero's award to a Nazi. This man fears the Nazis. Zelensky fears the far right. If you have a Jewish president giving an award to somebody who would have murdered his whole Jewish family, he fears these people. This is why Zelensky has been very careful about not talking about compromise. Because remember when they were talking about compromise? Remember when they were talking about giving autonomy to Donetsk and Luhansk? The far right in Ukraine were saying, if Zelensky compromises on the Donbass, we are going to lynch him. We are going to kill him. And if Zelensky ever does a compromise with Russia on Donbass, I would not be surprised to read that Zelensky, I would not be surprised to read about Zelensky getting on a plane to London, because the far right would want to murder him if he ever does any compromise with Russia. He fears the far right. And the fact that you have a Jewish man giving an award to a man who would have murdered his whole family back during the Holocaust tells me that the far right has a lot of popularity and a lot of influence and a lot of leverage. And their ideology is embedded in the society. It has historical roots there, obviously, and it still permeates in the collective paradigm and mindset in the society, especially in Eastern Ukraine. So it goes on to say that the 99-year-old, so this guy's a century old, the 99-year-old Shimshits in Ukraine enjoys a reputation as a hero. So it says here, on Friday, October 14th, Ukraine celebrated the Day of the Defender of Ukraine, established on the alleged date of the creation of the so-called Ukrainian Insurgent Army, UPA. So they celebrate the formation of the UPA in Ukraine, the formation of a insurgent army that took part in the extermination of Polish people and Jewish people. Yeah, Ukraine doesn't have a Nazi problem. On this occasion, President Volodymyr Zelensky awarded the title of Hero of Ukraine, Slava Ukraina, to the commander of the 88th Assault and Assault Brigade, Colonel Ihor Skibyuk, as well as a member of the criminal Ukrainian insurgent army, Sotnik Miroslav Shimji, pseudonym KRESY. Crazy man. 99-year-old Shimshich, in accordance with the presidential decree, was awarded the Order of the Golden Star and the title of the Hero of Ukraine. He was presented as a military man, social activist, I don't know what Sotnik is, of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, and a prisoner of communist camps. Now, here's the thing. So it says here, he became the hero of Ukraine for heroism shown in the fight for Ukraine's independence, outstanding personal merits, and shaping Ukrainian statehood. Yeah, part of shaping Ukrainian statehood involved murdering a whole bunch of people. So it says here, the Ukrainian media pointed out that KRESY spent 32 years in Soviet labor camps for being a member of UPA. So I'm pretty certain, I am pretty certain about this. If you were to show this guy to Jordan Peterson or to one of Jordan Peterson's fans or someone who is of that particular ideological strata, and you told them this man spent 32 years in a Soviet labor camp, they would say, oh my God, he was a political dissident. He was going against the collectivist mentality of the Soviets, of the communists, the what do they call them? The Marxists, multicultural Marxists, cultural Marxists. He was fighting the precursor to cultural Marxism, ended up in a Soviet labor camp for being a political dissident. Oh my God, he's just like Solzhenitsyn, fighting for the right of the individual against the tyranny of the collective. So why was this guy in a Soviet labor camp for 32 years? Well, our Polish friends here in KRESY will tell us. So it says here, in 1945, he took part in the battle for Kosmech, where his unit was to defeat the NKVD penal regiment. Shimshich is also a knight of the Ukrainian Orders Freedom. I don't hear about knights, man. It sounds like some Freemasonic lodge type stuff. For merit awarded to him by Presidents Petro Poroshenko and Viktor Yushchenko, respectively. So Poroshenko liked him, Yushchenko liked him, and it says here, respectively, and an honorary citizen of Lvov. That's where a lot of the killing went on, by the way. A lot of the slaughterhouse of the Poles took place in Lvov. And Kolomia. In the latter city, in 2008, a monument was erected for him. So not only did we murder a bunch of people here, we're also going to erect a nice statue for him. That's erect a statue for a mass murderer. Yeah, Ukraine has no Nazi problem, no far right problem. No. President's Jewish. President is Jewish. Yes, try getting an American Jew from New York City to give an award to a Nazi mass murderer who would have murdered his family. Try doing that. Tell him, here, give an award to this man because he fought the Soviets. Tell him, yeah, imagine what he's going to tell you. Imagine what this guy would tell you. You want me to do what? Hold on, you want me to give an award to who? What did he do? He fought the Soviets. But what else did he do? Well, you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, and he massacred a whole village and killed a bunch of people during the Second World War, killed Polish people. Oh my God, who the hell do you think I am? You think I'm some kind of Nazi bootlicker? Like, seriously, try doing this. Try going to Israel and asking any Israeli, to give an award to a Nazi mass murderer. It's not gonna happen. In fact, I am surprised that this guy wasn't extradited to Poland to be tried for war crimes. Oh, but he was working in a labor camp. It should be noted, however, that this former UPA was to order the murder of Poles from the villages of Pestine and Troika in the Stanislavow Voivodeship. As we wrote in April last year, the Association for there's this organization in Poland that does investigations on these sorts of things. And it says here that the Association for the Commemoration of the Victims of the Crimes of Ukrainian Nationalists, SWOZUN, in Wrocław, submitted an application to the Main Commission for the Prosecution of Crimes Against the Polish Nation to prosecute Miroslav Szymczyk. And I'm wondering why the Poles haven't done this. Why didn't they do this years ago? Well, we don't want to do that because, it would look bad. We want to have some good friendship with Ukraine. It's all political. A former member of the OUN UPA with the pseudonym KRESY, blah, blah, blah. The association referred to Soviet documents released in 2020. These are the materials of the post-war criminal case of Szymczyk, which shows that as the commander of the platoon of the UPA Moroza, Sotnia, he ordered the murder of Polish inhabitants of the village of Pestine in the Kosovo district of the Stanislavow Voivodeship. At the same time, KRESY threatened his people with death in the event of showing mercy. So he ordered the annihilation of this Polish town, and then he told his people, if any of you guys show mercy to any one of these Poles, I'm going to kill you myself. So this guy was a raging, racist, murderous lunatic. And the Jewish president is giving him an award. According to one of the documents, Szymczyk personally participated in the murder of the Iwaniki family. So he took part in the slaughter of a whole family. So we got here a Ukrainian Charles Manson. We got the Ukrainian Charles Manson getting an award for heroism from a Jewish man whose family this Nazi would not have hesitated to kill during the Second World War. And yet Ukraine doesn't have a Nazi problem. No. Doesn't have a far-right problem. Doesn't have an ultranationalist problem. If you have a Jewish man giving an award to a Nazi, it sounds like the Nazis have a lot of control. Because in America, in Israel, in England, in Australia, this wouldn't fly. And here's another thing. It was the Soviets that prosecuted this murderer. It wasn't the Poles. It wasn't the Americans. It was the Soviets that prosecuted him. They prosecuted him and they punished him by putting him in a labor camp for murdering Polish people. Now, if the Soviet Union hated Polish people, why would they do this? Why would they put a man in a labor camp for murdering Poles if they really hated Poles? The Nazis hated Poles. The Germans in the 30s and 40s hated Poles, and they worked with the Ukrainians to kill Poles, and they knew the Ukrainians were killing Poles, and they didn't do anything about it because that's what they wanted. So we could say 100% that the Germans hated Poles, but the Soviets prosecuted this monster for murdering Poles. So the Polish people today hate Russia, but yet it was the Russians that prosecuted this monster, and it's the Ukrainians today who are praising him and giving him awards. So really, you need to question this narrative that Ukraine is your friend, Mr. Polish people. You really need to question this narrative. This is why I'm doing these videos. I'm not doing these videos to, wave the Russian flag. I'm simply questioning the whole narrative that we must support Ukraine. Why do we have to support them? And we have, and really, it's more so impeaching the character of Ukraine. This is what I'm trying to do. I am calling into question the character of the Ukrainian nation, looking at its history, its nationalist ideology, how that ideology is embedded in the society, to the point where you have a Jewish man who is the president of the country giving an award to a Nazi mass murderer. And I'm looking at all of this, and I'm making a consensus that Ukraine doesn't really have this great moral character that a lot of people think it does. Just like if somebody were to say, listen, I know Bashar al-Assad is a dictator or whatever, but if you support these rebels, you may be supporting Islamists and murderers. How dare you say that? How dare you call into question these amazing freedom fighters? Don't you know Assad is evil? I'm not saying Assad is perfect, but what I'm saying is we have to be wary as to who we're helping here. How dare you say that? How dare you try to impede the pursuit towards freedom for the power of the individual against the tyranny of the elective? How dare you do this? In Jordan Peterson type voice. But this is what I'm doing. Are you actually helping a good country, or are you making a Frankenstein? But the fact is that it was the Soviets who prosecuted this monster. It's the Ukrainians who are praising him now, and it's the Poles today who this man, whose ancestors this man murdered, whose grandparents this man murdered, whose great-grandparents this man murdered. It's the Poles who are supporting Ukraine. And I'm surprised that the Poles have not asked for this man to be extradited into Poland to be tried for war crimes. Yes, this Polish organization has done this, but I'm wondering why the Polish government hasn't done this. So here's an interesting story that can give us some perspective here. John Demjanjuk, born Ivan Mikolayevich Demjanjuk, was a Ukrainian Nazi who worked as a Nazi camp guard at the Sobibor extermination camp, Majdanek, and Flossenburg. And he was known as a brutal camp guard. Well, he was tried in Israel. He was tried in Israel. You can read about it on Wikipedia. Now, would the president of Israel or the prime minister of Israel give this man an award? No. Would the Americans give this man an award? Would any American give this murderer, this asshole, an award? No. But in Ukraine, the president, the Jewish president, gives an award to a Nazi mass murderer, and for some reason we are expected to ignore this. I feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone, everybody. I feel like I am living in the Twilight Zone. Israel extradited this guy. Why didn't Poland extradite Mr. Zimczyk? Why? Why didn't Poland extradite this monster, this demon, this 99-year-old elderly demon. Why? Instead, the Poles ally with Zelensky, who gives this monster an award. It's like some weird case of Stockholm syndrome or some mental illness. I don't know what it is. It's crazy. It's so crazy. Well, it's because of Russia, blah blah blah. Yet you're helping the neighbor who murdered. Not only did they murder your, oh my god, not only did they murder your people, they praised the murderers today, and it was the Soviets who prosecuted this guy. It was the Soviets who worked with Poland to fight the OUN and the UPA. I find this crazy. Yeah. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.